Okay, my favorite Religion 211 students, we have 3 review slides. I'm going to give you all the questions from the exam, so make sure you're paying close attention. We're going to go John 10 all the way through the Last Supper. Okay, John 10, the Good Shepherd. What is a sheepfold? It is a place where the shepherd would take his sheep at night or when he needs to be away from them, and then he would come back and call for them by name. They wouldn't follow any other voice. Then Jesus tells this. He doesn't really tell a story. It's not a parable, but he gives this analogy that the wolf will come for the sheep. The hireling's going to run away because he's like, I'm not dying for these sheep. But the shepherd will step between the wolf, which think is the law of justice, and us. So on the exam, I'll probably say, I don't know. What in the Good Shepherd, what did we say in class the wolf represents? Okay, something like that. All right, John 11 is raising Lazarus from the dead. So an exam question would be, which miracle of Jesus leads to the triumphal entry? You would say raising Lazarus from the dead. Good job. Let's see. I don't think I'll ask you anything else about that. I might ask you, who else did the Pharisees want to kill besides Jesus? And it's Lazarus. They explicitly want to kill Lazarus. Isn't that interesting? Easy exam question. How much of the 4 Gospels are spent on the Savior's last week? You will say 1/3. The last week of the Savior's life takes up 1/3 of the 4 Gospels. Okay. I might give you, I might say, which of the following choices best describes the day of debate? And the day of debate is as follows. It is the entire last part of this slide. It involves the cleansing of the temple, challenging Jesus's authority, the tribute question, the marriage question, and the last scribe that comes to him. So there's quite a bit that happens on this day, a lot of public back and forth. How about this one for the exam? Why do the Romans not arrest Jesus for the triumphal entry? I mean, he's declaring himself to be the king of Israel. Why is he not arrested? They obviously would want to arrest him. I mean, they show later that they would arrest him. So why not now? It's because they likely don't know what he's doing. Let's see. I think we talked about the Messianic Psalm in the video. And when Jesus comes in on the donkey, he's saying, I'm the king of Israel. And with the clothes and the palm fronds and singing Psalm 118, the people are answering, we know, we believe you. So I don't know, what might I ask you about that? What about this? What if I said, as we discussed in class on the video, the colt, the clothes, the palm fronds, Psalm 118 are all hearkening back to the time of who? King David. Good job. Jesus cleanses the temple. I think on the video we talked about if there's 1 or 2 temple cleansings, and the answer is yes, there was 1 or 2. Let's see. Does everybody understand that? The reason being is that the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, put the temple cleansing at the very end of Jesus' life, where John puts it in chapter 2 of his gospel. So was he saying that there was an earlier one, or was he just taking this same event and putting it in the beginning? So that's why there's a little bit of a debate on that. Okay. So they challenge Jesus's authority. He gets out of it by saying, was John the Baptist inspired or not? I don't think I'll ask you anything about that specific instance. Let's see. How about in the tribute to Caesar? What could I ask you? When Jesus says, if it has Caesar's image on it, it belongs to Caesar. If it has God's image on it, it belongs to God. What Old Testament reference is he channeling there? That is Genesis chapter 1. God created man in his own image. What if I asked you this on the exam? The marriage question about the 7 brothers and the one wife. Who asked that question specifically? And it was the Sadducees. Good job. And why is that important? because the Sadducees did not believe that you live after you die. So why ask this question? It kind of implies that Jesus was teaching that people are married in the next life. The fact that they came up with a difficult situation for marriage in the next life to trip him up tells you, yeah, he was teaching marriage in the next life. And when Jesus says, when he quotes Jehovah saying, I am the God of Abraham, why, how about this? What saying from the Old Testament does Jesus use to prove the resurrection? That's a better question. And it is the quote, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob no longer live, if they don't exist because they've died, why would he say I am? Wouldn't he say I was? Okay, and oh, sorry, this kind of went crazy on me. Let's go backwards. Okay, and then the scribe question, I probably won't ask you about that, but I do think that's Nicodemus. Okay, so I'll probably ask you a good shepherd question. I'll probably ask you what miracle leads to the triumphal entry, what portion of the Gospels is the Savior's last week, the day of debate, can you describe it for me? The triumphal entry, why wasn't he arrested? What are these old, the donkey, the clothes, the palm fronts, what's that all about? Who's that going back to? Let's see. What reference is Jesus referring back to in the tax question, in the image of Caesar, in the image of God? Who asked the marriage question? Why is that important? And what phrase does the Savior use to teach about resurrection? And make that very clear. The marriage question from the Sadducees is not about marriage. It's about resurrection. Okay, good job. Okay, let's keep going. So Matthew 24 and 25, they are the fifth of the 5 books of Matthew. What are they called? The Olivet discourse. Can you do all 5? Can you do all 5 books of Matthew for the final? Sermon on the Mount, that's 5 through 7. Chapter 10, all apostolic discourse, 13, parables, 18, community discourse, and 24 and 25, the Olivet discourse, because it's given on the Mount of Olives. It's about the second coming of Jesus. How about this? What are the 3 parables of the Olivet discourse? That's an easy, has a simple answer. The 3 parables of the Olivet discourse are the 10 virgins, the talents, and the sheep and the goats. What is the abomination of desolation in the Olivet discourse? That is the destruction of Jerusalem. Happens twice. Once by the Babylonians in 587 BC and once by the Romans in 70 AD. Okay, let's see. I don't know what I'll ask you about the parable of 10 virgins. Probably like the word afterward became a crucial part of which parable that we talked about. I think the Olivet discourse question is what I'll ask you. I really like that second bullet point under the parable of the talents, that the guy with 5 who finishes with 10 and the guy with 2 who finishes with 4 get the exact same reward. What that teaches us. When the Savior says, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. What parable is that from? Parable of the sheep and the goats. So make sure you get all those questions right. I'm looking at this thinking, okay. I think I've given you what I would probably ask you. Of course, I can ask you anything that's on this review slide, but I'm trying to give you a heads up on what I'll likely do. Okay, one more. Maybe. Where's the next one? Okay, here it is. What Jewish feast became the sacrament? And the answer is the Feast of the Passover. Good job. The bread and wine are no longer about Moses and the children of Israel. They are now about Jesus and his flesh and blood. According to President Oaks, Dallin H. Oaks, what is the most sacred and important meeting in the church? Sacrament meeting. And hopefully you are making it more powerful and reflective and reverent. Okay. I think we're good there. Okay. How many chapters of John, or 1/4? Sorry. What was I going to say? Yeah, 1/4 of the book of John is about one night of the Savior's life. What night is it? It's the Last Supper. Let's see. What might I ask you on this? Um, in the great intercessory prayer, what is the thing that that Jesus asks of the Father? Father, I will that they also, that's you, whom thou hast given me, be with me where I am. Um, I don't think we mentioned that Bruce R. McConkie quote under John 14. So maybe we did. I can't remember. Let's see. Um, a branch connected to a vine can bring forth fruit. So you have to be connected to the vine. Wonder what I could do with that. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ask you any individual things about this. I'll probably ask you how much of John's gospel, how many chapters of John are dedicated to the Last Supper, who's the only gospel author to give us the great intercessory prayer, the sacrament question, what feast became the sacrament, most sacred, important meeting in the church. There's another question. Let's see. Um, maybe what symbol does the Savior give in John 16 about their future trials? He says it's like a woman in labor who suffers, but then her suffering is turned into joy. That could be a question. According to section 88, the disciple washing the disciples' feet is an ordinance. I could ask you that question. Okay, so those are your three review slides, and make sure you have the answers to these. And I try to give you those heads up questions, but again, when I'm making the exam, I'm just going to use these bullet points. So I'll try not to, of course, make it incredibly difficult for you, but just know that anything on the review slide is kind of open for the exam. All right, you're wonderful. Keep going. You only got a couple of weeks left. You're going to make it, and you're going to do great because you're amazing people. And you're doing what you can, and that's what matters. All right, we'll see you soon. Bye.